Hey, what's up everybody? Today we are out on the golf green to do some leveling, and I'm talking about actual leveling, not smoothing. Two very big things to distinguish there, and we will actually talk about those in just a second. But if you look behind me right here, here's my line right here where I've been cutting it a little bit longer. This is all fine over here. This is the area where we're going to start the transition and move everything over across and meet it up about where the sprinkler head is, just over here. So this area is what's going to get filled in. Now, I wanted this to grow up just a little bit so that I can brush it in, and I'm mainly going to use the two tools today. I'm going to use the leveling from R&R, the leveling rake, to use this. I'm also going to use just a push broom, so both those things, because I want to brush the grass up through it. All right, so for this today, I'm doing actually something pretty simple. I am just using Home Depot play sand. I have 1,000 pounds in here. And I basically did a calculus to run how much I would need to do 100 square feet at 1 inch. So it was actually a little less than 1,000 pounds, but I'm probably gonna have some sections that are a little deeper, some that are shallower, and I might have a couple other little patches to fill. You're not going to be doing that much if you're doing just a typical sort of smoothing out of a lawn, but that's a good number to work off of, is 3 cubic yards per 1,000 square feet to get an inch of coverage. So again, if you're gonna do half of that, you need 1.5 cubic yards. If you're gonna do more than that, well, your grass is probably gonna suffer a little bit, but just have that be your baseline starting point. Now, if you remember, the sand that I brought into here, I actually brought in about 40 cubic yards to do the green, to build it in the first place. And the one thing that you'll notice is even with this 1,000 pounds of sand here, it disappears really quick. Grass eats it up and it just looks like it's gone. You throw 50 pounds down and it disappears. You tend to need a lot more than you initially think, so just keep that in mind. I'll link a calculator down below so you can figure out exactly how much you need. That'll be down in the description so you can check that out. The difference between this sand and the green sand that was in there before, the sand that I had brought in was a 90-10 mix of PGA washed and screened sand, and it's very, very fine. It sets and packs really, really well. You won't find really any pebbles in it or anything like that like you will with this stuff. But since I'm mainly just trying to build up an area, I'm not too concerned with that. I'll be doing more top dressing with some more finer sand at a later date, but this is to just build my foundation a little bit. Grass will grow up through it, set its new putting surface, and then I'll be doing more and more top dressing as time goes on. Okay, so right now we are 300 pounds of sand down in that area right there. I'm gonna go ahead and get another 300 right here. And then once I kind of smooth it out, I'm actually gonna wet the whole thing down and kind of wash some of it in. But you can start to see the low spots versus the high spots. You know, there's that trough that runs right down the middle of it. So the sand's relatively deep there. So I'm actually gonna just wash it all in a minute and then kind of check what other high-low spots I need to just sort of brush around with the broom. But when I take the leveling rake across this, there's still a gap about 1/2 inch through the middle, so it probably won't come all the way up to the level that I need it today, because I'm gonna want the grass to come through and grow up through that a little bit first, and then it'll probably take a little bit more to get that kind of to where it needs to be. But I'm just sort of losing it around the edges, sort of just brushing it in, piling it all down into the middle trough, and just sort of trying to work it this way first so I get a level, and then I can kind of brush it back and forth that way so I'm not just pulling it right back out. So again, I'm gonna throw another 6 bags down right here, and then we'll kind of wash it all in and see where we sit. I think one question that people have a lot is there a better time of year to do this than others? And I would say for the most part, for cool season lawns, the best time of year to do this is gonna be the spring and the fall, because you really want your turf to be actively growing. And that's, right now isn't necessarily the best time. It's not that you can't do it. With how short I'm keeping the green and what its growth rate is right now with the water that I'm giving it, it's going to recover from this really fast. But again, normally, if you're trying to just sort of level spots, I would probably wait and do it either when the grass is growing the fastest in the spring, and you can kind of see what has gotten uneven over the winter time, or in the fall at the end of the year after you've figured out where everything's sort of scalped a bunch of times. Now, you can always patch and fill low spots pretty easily, but this, I don't know, I think just for, you know, my 2 cents on this is do it spring and fall. And then if you've got, you know, Bermuda or warm season grasses and you want to do it, summertime is your time, because that's when the growth surge is for the turf. So again, not that there's ever a bad time to do this, but there are more optimal times, just so you don't stress out the turf a whole lot. So guys, one thing I want to point out here is there's a big difference between level and smooth, and maybe that's just semantics, but honestly, I'm not getting out here with a level to try to get this exactly flat. That's not going to be my intention. My intention is to get it smooth over certain areas, so that it's easier to maintain with the reel mower. Now, as you can tell just by this thing pushing across, this is very, very, very smooth. It's packed well, it's grown in well, and I don't really have to do anything to even this out. The only reason I'm hitting that other area is because of how much settling took place. So, while I'm doing this here, this is just to spread a little extra sand, get a little bit of the longer grass to sort of stand up a little bit, and I'll actually be able to cut it as low as that mower will go and get this thing even faster. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the activity here. There's 1,000 pounds of sand put out across the green, the bulk of it just being here to smooth out the areas just behind me, the rest of it just to kind of top dress a little bit in and sort of stand up some of the other grass so it cuts down a little bit shorter. Now, sprinklers are gonna run throughout the day a couple times. I'm keeping this area over here damp as I'm trying to actually grow seed here in the heat. We'll see how that comes together in a later video. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you comment if you have something to say or questions you have about this. Just drop them down below and we'll have a nice little conversation about that. And in the meantime, let's just see how this flushes out through the rest of the day. I appreciate you watching the video. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.